see it.
Welcome to the Disruptive Innovation Festival, the online festival that asks the question, what if we could redesign everything? We are already on our second Wednesday, which means halfway through the DIF. I've really enjoyed it so far. I hope you're enjoying it as well. For this session, I'm very pleased to welcome Joanna Casaka-Lemos, who is a designer and researcher focusing on communication, sustainability, and co-creation methods. We're going to find out how we can unlock a new era for sustainability through empowering people to design solutions themselves. Joanna will explain us more about this with a method she has developed through her doctoral design research. This question is an interactive session, so please post all your comments in the comment box below this session or tweet using the hashtag ThinkDiff. And that's it for me for now. And welcome, Joanna.
Hi, hello everyone. Super exciting to be here today and share with you some of the insights from a recently completed PhD research project. I hope you have lots of questions at the end because things can only improve and get better with feedback and thoughts from everyone out there. So a little bit of background on me. I'm a designer and researcher. My background is in communication strategy. And at the moment, I am also a professor for interaction design at Code University in Berlin. And when I'm not doing that, I am working on client projects, field work, and design research. So to jump into today's talk and the theme I want to share with you is about design as empowerment. Let me get this presentation up for you. All right. All right, here we go. So design is empowerment. I'm going to be talking about one specific case from the field, which was a method that I've developed over the course of 3 years as part of the PhD research. It is called communications assembly. And I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what the process itself is and also how it empowered roughly 20 small-scale businesses. So when we talk about design and empowerment, the current conversations are around the theme that the designer is an agent of change. And various different designers and authors come at it from a different perspective of what being an agent of change actually means. I think that, to me, that the common thread amongst designers today is this understanding of care. Like, we want to be able to empower people out there to design better solutions for themselves. And we want to support them in doing that because we feel that we want to be dedicated to developing a culture of care. You know, design as empowerment, the way that I see it in my practice, is about developing methods and tools that support others to flourish. And the reason why I use the word flourish, as you'll see in a moment, is a specific reason. And also one of the reasons why I've become so interested in this idea of a communication assembly. So communication assembly is the name that I've given to this method that's now been tested in various different countries with over 20 different businesses now, and it seems to work. There's always room for improvement, like with any design process, but as so far, very positive and happy with some of the results. And some of the businesses that I've worked with using this process are based in London, in Lisbon, Amsterdam, Delhi, Mumbai, San Francisco, and Berlin as well. And this happened over the course of 3-4 years, starting in 2013. And you'll find a common thread on all these different logos I'm sharing on the screen here, because they're all part of this sustainable food movement. And the reason why I chose to work in this area, and the work could have been done in any other field, but the sustainable food movement in particular, because, and then going back to the idea of flourishing, there is a common quality that is experiential, right? So like we better understand where food is coming from and how it's produced when we experience it. And I hope this will become a little bit clearer later on in the presentation when I share with you about qualities of sustainability as a concept. So the reason why designer's empowerment as a principle is important, because everyone is an expert of their own experience. And this is a little bit of a personal mantra in my design work. Everyone that I collaborate with brings something incredibly valuable to the process and to the project, because they are an expert of their own life experience, of what they feel, what they think, their cultural background. It's a very complex and rich package that everyone brings to the table. And this is really important to understand when we talk about designers as agents of change, because we should be in a position where we hold the space for everyone to bring their best selves forward and to feel comfortable doing that. And so the businesses that I chose to work with in the area of sustainable food movement, obviously I've kind of followed their journey over 3 years, so I've grown very they've grown very dear on me, and it's been very beautiful to just watch how they interact with their customers, right? A lot of these people that are doing a brilliant job promoting better food practices, whether it's production, distribution, or working with food waste in different countries around the world, do it because they strongly believe it's the right thing to do, and that we desperately need to address one of the current massive sustainability issues that is around food. These photographs, which you'll notice in the bottom left corner, were taken by a wonderful photographer, Katie Needles, and together we went around various different artisanal food producers to try to capture this idea of qualities. Like, what are the qualities that define their business? Like, what is like their experience every day? What does it feel like? Like, what does it smell like? How do we bring forward the authenticity of what they do? Like, how do we empower them to be able to explain why their business really matters, their value, like their core value? And as you might notice in the cities where you live, like, this movement brings people together. People come together around shared values, and this is common regardless of where in the world we are. We align. We come together in community around shared values and shared ideas. Which brings me to this point of a definition of sustainability that I very much like, which is John Ehrenfeld's definition of sustainability as flourishing. And I started looking at frameworks for impact and sustainability, and I looked at several. This made the most sense to me, to look at sustainability beyond a purely objective, quantitative, rational way, away from the things we can measure, to also focus on the things we can feel, and how experiences that amplify our experience, our kind of spiritual, our feeling of community, of relationships, how we can design a process or a method that amplifies such qualities of sustainability became a central question of my research. And then I started to kind of notice it in a way of, what if we called it design as flourishing? What would that look like if we design process that amplifies qualities of sustainability for these businesses that are often quite small businesses and small, so whether they're a social enterprise or business, to really be able to amplify these qualities. So design as flourishing is rooted in the empowerment of the beneficiaries. And these are words from a brilliant design writer. And the reason why I feel like it's important to have this conversation is because everyone is pretty much aware of what the key sustainability and impact problems are these days. So it's good to bring people together in a conversation around potential solutions. And quite often, more than one person will have a brilliant idea that it's been tested out, or a prototype idea. But how do we bring them together in a way that we can build on each other's experience? So the framework for qualities of sustainability, and I give you here like a very brief snapshot because it can go into quite theoretical descriptions, and I'm happy to share more if you're interested afterwards. For my research, I based communication assembly process on these three frameworks. The first one is Ben Eli, who was a student of Buckminster Fuller, if any of you are familiar with the work, designer in the 70s. The second one is a framework by Enzio Manzini, who's a very contemporary design writer, author, researcher. And the third one by Professor Stuart Walker. And what all of these have in common to me is they really touch on points about sustainability that are more experiential rather than quantitative. So they are qualitative frameworks. And when we speak of design, like so often we're concerned about the things we can measure in terms of sustainability. So what happens if we look at things from a perspective of a qualitative perspective? So how do we design for qualities of sustainability, the way people feel about relationships, collaboration, their understanding of time, their understanding of like how long an organic carrot takes to grow, for example, or how far it's traveled to reach the consumer. So communication assembly as a new design process was a new kind of experimental format that throughout 3 years I tested with several different businesses in different locations. And the central question was and still is, how might we empower small businesses to develop and amplify a story of impact? And the story of impact is focused on their qualities of sustainability. And it became very clear very early on that we cannot work in silos or alone. So the designer should not be working one-on-one with each of these food businesses, but rather bring people together in a room and co-create. And you might remember earlier on, I mentioned this idea of everyone being an expert of their own experience. And when people come together and bring their own experience, it can be so much more fruitful. So this quote, which I really love, which was from Alicia, Ruby's in Rebel is a business in London, and they work with food waste. She called it an arena for discussion. So bringing together like all these different businesses into the same room and giving them a design tool to work with and helping them, or rather supporting them, to collaborate together. So this is what communication assembly ended up being. So in a nutshell, communication assembly is a co-creation process to empower small-scale businesses. It amplifies their qualities of sustainability, and it does so by helping them create or imagine new experiences, interactions, communications that they can put together with and for their consumers. Now, in terms of the geographic outreach of this process so far, I have had being very lucky and very privileged to do this in Senegal, in London, Lisbon, San Francisco, and a few other countries. And what's really interesting is that regardless of cultural context or geographical context, everyone relates to this idea of qualities of sustainability and to the experience. The things that we feel, like the things that bring us together as community. And everyone seems to understand also the value in coming together to co-create new ways to amplify those qualities of sustainability. Which is a really interesting way, because interesting thought, because considering that when we output a new design method, which consists of, in this case, a canvas and a set of cards, very straightforward and basic, the lengthy side of the work is developing the content that goes on there. And it's very interesting to see how much we can really draw on the participants of research. So all these businesses that were involved to develop the content. So all the content that is like prompt ideas in the canvas and the cards of communication assembly, all of it is really emerging from them. So it's essentially like giving them a set of tools to speak the things that they already know, like they are the experts of their own experience. And of course, when we look at design tools like the canvas and the cards that look absolutely super simple, one might not think the time that it actually takes to develop something that looks such a way. And in this case, the iteration and evaluation model for communication assembly was quite complex. And again, I'm happy to dive more into this if anyone is interested in kind of the back end of things, so to speak. These are just some snapshots of the various different workshops and iterations that took to reach the final working prototype, and in various locations and different setups, and sort of very different people that kindly showed up to these sessions to create something that didn't really exist before, and just really trusting the process. And why was it important to create communication assembly? Because it seems like there's so many brilliant small businesses out there that have a really interesting story to tell. They are so rich at the core of their why, like why they do what they do. And it would just be a shame to not develop a process that empowers them to be able to get that story across themselves, like more effectively, in an authentic way, because again, they are the experts of their own experience. And so these are just some snapshots from the sessions that we've done on what is the story you're trying to tell. That's the question that we ask. And trying to understand what are some of the qualities in that story some of the qualities of sustainability that you really want to amplify, the things you really want to get across to the audience and you're struggling to do. Some of these, as you can see, are very straightforward, and others are kind of intricate and interesting to try to break down and break apart, like, you know, health and well-being, giving back to the community, connection and care. And then the word care seems to be a constant throughout this research too. So I want to give you a very brief preview of the results of this research and what happens when people use communication assembly as a design process. So on the left, you'll see some of the businesses that we worked with to develop this, and the matrix at the top, it shows you different qualities of sustainability that were identified. And you probably see a common theme, which is collaboration seems to be one quality that everyone wants to kind of get across to the public as an important quality. And the second is relationships. So the two probably go hand in hand, which is very significant in terms of when we talk about what design can do for sustainability. I think that's a massive hint right there. And then we look at also what communication strategies they're more interested in, what strategies would they use to amplify such qualities. At the top, you'll see building community, again, is a very common one that we find. And back to, when we link this back to communication, to qualities of sustainability, which you might remember, collaboration and relationships, it sort of ties together that community does imply collaboration and relationships. Then you'll find that transparency and storytelling are also two strategies that very much used, maybe because in terms of sustainability, these are words that are more out there in the public realm. So to give you a very brief overview of what communication assembly has done for these businesses, collaboration seems to be a super important quality to address. Authenticity in terms of a communication strategy, so showcasing like what they do that is original and kind of unique to them. Also, personal meaning is an interesting one in terms of quality of sustainability. Personal meaning means being able to explain why they do what they do, like why I get up every morning to, you know, to make sure that there's sustainably sourced fish from my, you know, like from my dedicated fishermen and like bringing it to London. Or I remember like looking at various different ways that Soulshare, for example, tries to tell that story. So design as empowerment as a concept is rooted in design as flourishing. And the two for me go hand in hand. Design as empowerment, meaning giving, being like the power away from the designer and distributed among the people who will be impacted by the design work. And design is flourishing as a concept that amplifies qualities of sustainability, which are the experiential elements of sustainability. And if you're curious to learn more about the research journey, which can go quite detailed into also the theoretical pieces that I mentioned, like please go and check out on the website. There's some work up there, but also reach out and I'm happy to email or share any more content. And to know more about communication assembly as a process and the tools, yeah, please have a look as well and let me know what you think. Let me know your feedback. It's very important to keep the iterations going. At the moment, I am also hosting workshops for different organizations using this tool. So if you feel like that's something that would be valuable, please let me know. And also collaborating with impact accelerators to work with startups that are focused on impact and sustainability, and using communication assembly as a tool that helps them amplify the qualities of sustainability that they feel are important in their activities. So that is all for me for now, but I'm excited to have a conversation now and hear your questions.
Yes, thanks, Joanna, a lot. It's very interesting to hear a bit about design and rethinking the meaning of design and how we can make it purposeful. And to start off with that, like you say, we use design as an empowerment, and we want to actually hand it over to other people so they can design. So in that, does the role of being a designer change? And the work of a designer, is the designer not the designer anymore?
That's a really good question, and it's definitely like a long debate. I would say, like, so many people have different perspectives on that. I feel that humans are by nature, they have traits of designers. Like, we are by nature problem solving creatures. That doesn't say that being a designer with a capital D takes time and takes practice mainly, and trying to develop a level of design intelligence, that's what I usually call it, takes time, because it takes understanding methodologies and evaluation and what works best in what context. So that would be my answer to that.
So how I see it, that you then still have two different roles of a designer. So you have the
Sure.
person that is trained in the designer and is like the expert, but you also have the person that you want to be a designer. So
Sure.
how would you make that distinction between those roles then?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that this is what we've been referring to as expert designers and non-expert designers. So you kind of have like the everyday designers, so people that can use these methods and tools to problem solve themselves. But the people who create the methods and tools, that takes, I think, a different level of understanding of design, and especially a different sort of a practice.
So we actually have a question coming in from Lisa, and she wonders, what are the practical implications of getting design to a wider population?
I think that the practical implications, I take that in like a positive way. Like, what would be the positive outcomes? From what I've seen, and I've worked in several different continents and countries and contexts, it's always a positive experience. Like, people really enjoy feeling like they can come up with creative solutions for their own problems themselves. And I think for the design discipline, where we are right now, a very exciting point, as you might have seen from all the design talks that have been shared at DIF, I think that it's a very exciting time where we are shifting from the designer as like kind of like the expert to more of a facilitator and an enabler. So to me, I can only see positive outcomes when we start to kind of share methods and tools with a wider population.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that we're all experts of our own experience a couple of times throughout your presentation. So the question coming in from Elisa is, how can we become more aware of those experiences?
That's really great. Yeah, we're all experts of our own experience. This is when I feel that, as designers, or thinking like a designer, quote, quote, it's like an everyday training, it's an everyday practice. You know, you walk down the street, you have like a lens onto the world where you're noticing things, you're noticing problems, you're noticing opportunities for innovation, you're noticing people, you're building empathy for people. So I feel that coming to awareness of our own experience, life experience, is just an everyday practice of being mindful, I suppose, and kind of developing, opening our eyes to the world around us.
All right, thanks a lot for answering that question. I think I want to wrap it up with these questions now. It's really interesting to hear your view on how design is taking its shape and how more and more people will get involved in design in the future. And a takeaway that we can all have from it is that we should all be open to opportunities and have empathy for the things that are around us. So thanks a lot for having this great session. For everybody viewing online, thanks a lot for being there. I just want to inform you about a few sessions we also have going on around this theme that could be very interesting. One that I'm really looking forward to is one of Ken Webster tonight at 7. He argues that if we can build an economy that is regenerative by design and accessible, we need a different way of thinking, not a way of thinking that like flow of wealth, but one that more argues about around a wealth of flows. So if you want to see that, tune in at 7 p.m. GMT. We have all our sessions on DIF on demand, so you're able to watch back the sessions, also this one later on. But one that I could recommend is one from last week from Moritz Gekeler, and he tells us more about collaboration experience design. So using design as a tool to create more positive collaborations. So that's it for now. Thanks a lot, Joanna, and goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.